Expectations are high that the government would unveil a slew of goodies in the form of tax cuts, capital expenditures, additional jobs, or some combination of all these, in a bid to boost sentiment and help the economy overcome the speed breaker that has stalled its growing momentum. Our next report telling you more.
A significant number of Indians are showing their displeasure with income taxes on social media. So, it's hard to turn a blind eye to the growing chorus of voices demanding a change to India's tax system, which has been unchanged for 6 decades. The previous attempts in 2010 and 2019 failed. The Indian government plans to present a new income tax bill in the budget session. The proposed legislation seeks to streamline the current income tax structure, decrease its length by approximately 60% and enhance its clarity. Taxpayers would benefit from a simplification of the present law's complex web of rules, sub-rules, clauses, sections and subsections. However, the change ought to have a specific objective. Any reform must guarantee equality, with the affluent and the poor, as well as present and future generations, bearing an equal share of the load. New Delhi wants greater tax revenue and expanded tax base. The middle class, though, is hoping for immediate assistance. The new tax code should do both in a delicate balancing act. The tax base in India is too narrow. About 63% of those who filed their income tax returns last year, nearly 47 million people, paid nothing. On the spectrum's opposite end are the 40,000 affluent, who each paid about $100,000. However, the wealthiest taxpayers pay less than 20% of all income taxes. The middle-class taxpayers are the ones whose opinions really count, politically at least. This is because they're responsible for carrying over 80% of the tax load. This group has recently been complaining about how they are being ripped off, not just the income tax, but also whenever they spend money, whether it is on a new car or almost anything. The complaints about the taxes paid on earnings from investments are also a big grumble. Any announcement on the income tax rate changes will take center stage in the budget. Raising the threshold for exemptions and lowering the burden under the old and new tax systems is a hotly contested topic. Inflation is a major problem. Will Sitharaman give any positive news for ordinary taxpayers? The anxiety and speculation keeps growing about what is ultimately going to come out of the budget. Business Bureau, WION, World is One.
And well, for more on this, we are now being joined by Hemendra Hazari, Senior Market Analyst, live from Mumbai. Welcome to Business Insights, Mr. Hazari.
Good evening to you and to your viewers.
Good evening to you as well, Mr. Hazari. First up, what is your outlook on India's upcoming budget? We are just a few days away from that.
There are two main problems with the Indian economy today. One, there is a paucity of demand. We are seeing that even in Lever's results, where there's been a flat volume growth in items of mass consumption. So we need to prop up the demand in the economy. And two, the inflation in the food commodities basket, essentially, because that is hitting the vast segments and the masses of the population. Now, to do this, the government, to stimulate demand, the government must increase its total expenditure and therefore its total fiscal deficit as a percentage of GDP. But unfortunately, I don't think the government will do this. What they will do is they will make a pretense of supposedly increasing expenditure. Well, they'll increase some capital expenditure to GDP. But what they're going to do to compensate for that, and what they have been doing for the last couple of years, is that they've been reducing revenue expenditure sharply. So as a result, what we have seen is that the total expenditure to GDP as well as the fiscal deficit to GDP has been coming down. And this is one of the reasons for the poor demand in the Indian economy for the last 2-3 years, which has got aggravated and which is now visible this year. So what I think the government will do is they will increase capex, but they will again reduce revenue expenditure. Now, when you reduce revenue expenditure, what happens is the masses, when you have higher revenue expenditure, there is more income for the vast bulk of the population, and they consume more. But when you reduce that, you're actually constraining the economy. And therefore, the Indian economy has been going through a very tight squeeze in these last couple of years. So I think this will continue. The government may make some token, income tax cuts, but income tax really cuts will only affect the middle class and not revive overall demand in the Indian economy. So we'll continue to see a very stagnant Indian economy or a very deteriorating Indian economy because the government has a great reluctance because of foreign capital to increase the fiscal deficit.
Right, Mr. Hazari, you did touch upon what you expect from the government in this upcoming budget. Let's also talk about what can we expect from the markets on the 1st of February.
Well, the markets will see for the individual sectors where the government is giving any benefits. But today the markets also is very visible. If you see the company earnings and sales in particular, that is flat all over. There's very marginal growth taking place in real terms. And that is very visible because the wage rate, the employment situation in the Indian economy is very bleak. And with these government measures that we have seen is only going to get worse. I really don't see it improving. Because the only way you can improve it if the fiscal deficit is allowed to expand and provide some stimulus to the Indian economy. Now, on top of all this, we'll have the Trump measures and tariff measures. And we have to see what type of impact that will have on the Indian economy, because that will be a further negative.
Right, I was just coming to that. With Trump 2.0 set to redefine global trade with tariffs, how can perhaps India be prepared?
Well, India can only be prepared through countermeasures because that's the only way, that's how the rest of the world is going to react to Trump's tariffs. Now, we can also, react by increasing the tariffs on American exports to India and services. But I think probably a more effective and probably a more subtle way is that we know for a fact that the tech giants are avid Trump supporters. We have seen them very visible in the inauguration. And their institutions in India, like Google, Facebook, Walmart, all these, we then put subtle pressures on them and tighten the regulations for them. So therefore, these tech moguls will definitely feel the pinch on their business, and hopefully they'll be able to convince Trump to go easy on India, because that's the only way you can deal with Trump and these measures. And I'm sure the rest of the world is also going to react in some form to counter the US tariffs on their economy.
Right, Mr. Hazari, thank you so much for joining us on Beyond Business Insights with your insights on this.
Thank you.